we need to acknowledge the loss. We need to acknowledge the grief that we were feeling. Because to do otherwise is to basically treat an open wound as something that doesn't exist. So in this episode, it's going to be another more serious, more somber topic, because in this episode we're dealing with how we react to loss and grief, and how we treat our loved ones while dealing with that loss and grief. Because in the footage for this episode, it's detailing the second chapter of Ophelia's story, in which she goes and relights one of the other flames for her big overarching story in which she's the flame bearer or something. She goes around with a little lantern and relights a bunch of spiritual fires so that the god of evil doesn't wake up or something like that. I can't quite remember what her story is fully. Anyway, the set dressing isn't what's important. What happens in the story and the lessons we can take from it are what are important. Which is, so I got myself ordained back in the day so that I could marry and bury queer people, since not a whole lot of them get, because most religious services are pretty discriminatory, and I wanted to provide those same sorts of services to people in need of them. And I also have helped, as I've said before, and I can't fully say what it is on the channel because of advertiser unfriendly language, but I've helped 161 people through some of the worst parts of their lives. And as part of I do not dissimilar stuff as what an actual religious figure would do. So to watch Ophelia be a good example of a religious leader, of a spiritual leader, it's very touching in a way that a lot of real life and other such things don't really deal with. And it's also funny timing that it also coincides with the announcement of the death of Pope Francis. I want to say it was Francis. It might have not been Francis. The Pope, the current one. The least bad Pope that I can think of. Yeah, he died today. He met with Vance last night, and he fucking died today. So, I'm gonna be doing... The next video is gonna be about him, because I'm like, ooh, that's topical, and I can put my own spin on it. Anyway, on to how we're going to be speaking about the dealing of loss and how we do with grief. So, I think it all ties back to the hedgehog's dilemma, in which humans desire intimacy and understanding, but we also fear the pain that comes with those things. And so, the guy who came up with the theory thought that hedgehogs hurt each other if they cuddle too much, but the thing is they do in fact cuddle and they don't hurt each other. But the idea being that, can't get too close together or else we're gonna hurt each other. But this, in part, there is another game that deals with grief and loss, which I'll be covering on the channel in probably in like 2 years or something like that, or at least next year. It's the new God of War series. I guess it's a duology. I guess they're not doing a trilogy, which it would have been neat to have it be a trilogy. But anyway, the wife of Kratos, who died, the second wife of Kratos, I gotta specify, his second wife, mother of Atreus, she has a great line about how about the connection between love and loss. In that, she tells him through, I don't know if it's like a time travel scene, because I guess it's from Ragnarok, the second game. I haven't gotten to that yet, so I've just seen like footage and stuff. And I'm like, is Kratos aware of what's happening? He might be. Then again, she could also see the future, so it all could be tied together. It's funky. Anyway, she tells Kratos, and I'm quoting here, "The culmination of love is grief, and yet we love despite the inevitable. We open our hearts to it." She also tells him that to grieve deeply is to have loved fully. And that is something that is, when you've lost people in your life that you've loved deeply, the grief is generally proportional to how much you cared about them. The hole in your life that they used to fill is gone. And generally speaking, we are not given the tools that we need in order to help process the loss and heal from the grieving process on our own. That's just something that, generally speaking, most societies don't teach their members. Most cultures don't. Well, generally speaking, grief and how we deal with it is considered a private matter. And while, yeah, you can't... And this just reminds me of something from Dragon Age 2, which Aveline, one of your party members, upon the main character's loss of a family member, recites a story in which her father would read storybooks to her when she was a kid, and he wouldn't turn the page until she was ready. So when it came time for him to be on his deathbed, she would read the same stories to him, and he did it again. He wouldn't turn the pages until she was ready too, or something like that. And from memory, she says something along the lines of, she couldn't tell if he was too weak to turn the page, or if he was doing the same thing they did when she was young. From these, we can learn lessons that we should have learned from our parents, or from whoever raised us. But for various reasons, generally speaking, we don't get taught these lessons in a manner that is conducive towards ensuring the betterment of us as individuals. But what can we learn from Faye and what she tells Kratos? As I said, our grief is proportional to our loss, generally speaking. But we must open ourselves up to that grief. And she goes down later on and talks more about it. I'm going to bring that back later. And then from Aveline, we can learn, it is personal, and we ourselves have to be the one that choose to... Saying that you move on from grief is not the most accurate. I helped an online friend the other day who's dealing with the loss of one of their online friends who died due to the stuff that I helped people survive from, to make it as advertiser friendly, as YouTube friendly as possible. And so it's one of those things where, as part of the work that I've done, I've also had to help people through the grieving process of the loss, when the methods to save those people do not succeed. And so, as I was helping him, I explained that we need to acknowledge the loss. We need to acknowledge the grief that we were feeling, because to do otherwise is to basically treat an open wound as something that doesn't exist, and that will only allow it to fester and will not heal properly. We need to identify this source of pain and focus on, accept that it exists, and with time, you can heal. It might take a long time, but it'll eventually become just a scar that aches from time to time, instead of an open wound that is festering and is bringing untold pain to you. That is something that I had to explain to him. Going back to Ophelia, her story in this bit is that she meets a group of boys. One of the boys has recently lost his mother and has been lashing out as a result, because both due to his youth and because of his situation, he isn't capable, or at least he isn't given the compassion and understanding, the guidance from which to learn how to handle emotional regulation and such. His pain is so great that he sees other people with their living parents as, why do they get to have a mother? A living, loving mother. And so because of that, he has outbursts, and his most recent outburst is over this other boy losing his brooch, which belonged to his mother. And so what eventually ends up happening is Ophelia goes and talks with the young boy who had lost his mother, and relays to him that she herself had lost her parents, and her adoptive sister is the one that helped her through the grief and the pain by being there for her. And the lesson that she imparts upon him through compassion and understanding, through her own experiences, is that we need not lose just the person that died. If we treat those around us in such a manner, we'll lose them as well. Which we need the love and care of other people to make life worth living. So the boys do eventually reconcile, but only after some eldritch big fuck-off wolf comes into play. The wolf, I guess, tricked a dog into stealing the brooch off the ground, or the wolf was the dog? It's not quite well explained. You'd think that a town would realize, like, the wolf's pretty fucking big. It's like 10 foot tall or something. You would have thought that they would have saw the wolf coming in. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, the dog took the brooch, ran off into the woods, and then the wolf ate the dog, or tricked the dog into doing all this. It's all kind of goofy, it's just kind of out of nowhere. It's a little bit funny. So anyway, Ophelia saves the boys, and so the boys get to experience life as friends that can love and help each other through the grieving process, and no longer have these outbursts, or at least hopefully not have these outbursts. This is the sort of thing where it's like, it's a wait and see sort of a thing, where if, like, you know, the parents, the surviving parents, are gonna have to help the kids. Ophelia is a fantastic example of a leader that uses their compassion stemming from personal experiences to help lead others through personal growth. You cannot just say a lesson to somebody. You must teach the lesson. The lesson must be understood more than just known. You can know the full length of the dictionary, but that doesn't mean that you understand the meanings of the words. And you can recite Bible scripture, but you can not understand what the scripture is meant to relay, which is one of the big problems with religion. And so, she is phenomenal. This was honestly a really good chapter. For as much as people say that these are just very plain, trope-filled stories, sometimes these basic stories, these fundamental building blocks of society and human nature, need to be seen and understood. And from what I've seen, this is phenomenal. On to the last bit. So, as I said before, Faye said one more thing that ties back into this, about our connections with other people. At the end of that one scene, in which she tells him that grief is the culmination of loss, she tells him that he should open his heart to the world as he had opened it to her, and that he would find every reason to keep living in it. Which, for those 161 people I've helped, every single one, my goal was to ensure that they found a life worth living, because that is the ultimate. Without that, that is what causes the loss of those people to occur. They see their pain, their misfortune, as something that is so great that it would be preferable to not experience anything ever again. And I could easily see Kratos succumbing to such a mindset, even with his son to keep taking care of. But her last lesson for him, in regards to that scene, is one that needs to be understood by everybody. That through love and understanding of each other, we can make a life worth living. Because without love and understanding, life isn't worth living. So with that, I'm going to leave you and hope that you have the best day that you can have. I'll see you next time.